Can I just get a... Can you just say hello to our people here?
Hello everybody, my name's John Shipton. I'm Julian Assange's invited in for a chat with Jacob.
Right, okay, I'm going to ask you to talk a bit louder than that, for the rest of it, John, if I can. And I'll turn that up and that down. Yeah, we're also joined, we got some people in here from the Melbourne for WikiLeaks support group. We got Millsy and Rain and...
Hi.
Here a couple of moments ago. Yeah, say good day.
Hello, hope everyone's dry.
Yeah, no one's sort of expecting technical brilliance from the Friday Rave.
Oh, come on, don't sell us short already.
No, they're here. They're here for the content rather than the production value. But really, at 3CR, we do try to keep the production values quite high. But let's just say that that's not my strong suit. Okay, so John.
Yes.
Yeah, can I get you to talk a bit louder, brother?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, mate, to start with, people are aware, people have been listening to 3CR in general, and I guess people who have been listening to my show in particular have been following Julian's case a fair bit. We're aware of what's happening. But can you give us an update? I believe his brother went to visit him.
Yeah, yes, Julian has a brother, younger brother, 36 years of age, and he went, his name is Gabriel, and he went to the prison, which is Belmarsh maximum security prison. Can you believe that Julian is a gentle, intellectual sort of fella, gets locked up in a maximum security prison. But anyway, he called in and saw Julian. Julian is emaciated and not in tip-top order of health and suffering a bit of anxiety. Still fighting spirit strong, but his well-being is declining rapidly.
Right, and his well-being was strong, but yeah, it's when you think of him being in Belmarsh, and particularly, not just any old prison, but Belmarsh prison, as has often been referred to by the BBC, no less, as Britain's answer to Guantanamo Bay. How's Gabriel? How'd Gabriel cope with seeing his brother in there?
Oh, he wrote a letter to Prime Minister Scott Morrison describing Julian's circumstances and health.
Well, that assumes that Scott Morrison is actually literate.
But in it, he did, asked Scott Morrison to do something urgently because if not, we will lose Julian.
Yeah, and as you're aware, as people would be aware, WikiLeaks basically started in Melbourne. It's a Melbourne born and bred institution, and Julian came up with the whole concept and idea while he was studying at Melbourne University. So is Julian aware that people in Australia are supporting him still? I mean, what's the feeling with Julian and the family and Gabrielle and everyone about the level of support that he's getting? Obviously not from the Australian government, what can we expect, but from the people in Australia.
Oh, Julian, in my feeling, depends greatly upon the support of Australians, and their support has been unflagging over the years. The government, of course, has taken no notice and only takes notice, it seems to me, only takes notice of the United States and the United Kingdom, and will happily happily, probably not the right word, but willingly sacrifice Julian's well-being to the demands of the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and that's something that I still can't understand. All this talk, people are renewing talks for a republic, and people are talking about all kinds of all kinds of Australian sovereignty and doing what's best for Australia in a whole range of issues. The Prime Minister said, I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning, about Jacinda Ardern, that he doesn't understand, that he hopes she understands that he has to stand up for Australia's interests, not New Zealand or the Pacific's interests. How do you think it serves Australia's interests to have Julian locked up in Belmarsh?
Well, in no way at all. Australia, in the emerging multilateral world, it's very important to have some standing in the world forums. I would speculate that New Zealand, which is a country, population smaller than Sydney, has greater standing in world forums than Australia. Your standing in world forums allows you to negotiate for the interests of your country. At the moment, we seem to be seen as somebody who would negotiate for the interests of the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yes, it strikes me as being somewhat, dare I say it, because I'm not usually one to resort to nationalism, but it strikes me as being somewhat un-Australian to think that the government and some of the people are willing to leave an Australian citizen locked up in Mother England, as it were, our previous colonial masters, waiting to be extradited to our present colonial masters.
And to spend 175 years in jail.
Yes.
That's a life, of course, life sentence. That's if you survive the delights of the American prison system.
Well, at the moment it sounds like he's going to have a hard time surviving the likes of the British prison system.
Yeah, so you bring that up there. He's in a cell 20 hours a day and has 2 visits a month, 2 social visits a month. Lawyers are allowed there other times, and these social visits can be arbitrarily cancelled or reduced in time. So I went there 2.5 months ago, and we waited and were told that we couldn't come, and then the next week we went in. It's a 2-hour visit, but they had forgotten to tell Julian, so they had to go and find him and bring him down. So it comes down to an hour, just 1 hour visit, to travel all the way from Australia to see Julian and get an hour. It seems cruel to me.
It does. And is that, do you think, conspiracy or fuck up, John? Is it like you went all the way from Australia, and did they give a reason why you couldn't see him at the previously planned time?
No reasons sort of given. There was appointments. There were conflicting appointments made with his doctors to come and see him. Well, not his doctors, prison doctors to come and see him. So they use those times, the visiting times, to have his medical examiners examine him, which means, of course, that a social visit has to be cancelled.
Right, and then the second time you say they neglected to tell him.
Yeah, the second time we were waiting there, that was a WikiLeaks employee, AYWE, the artist, and myself, and we waited 46 minutes of the 2 hours for Julian to arrive. We inquired after half an hour what was happening, and they said, oh, well, we forgot. He's in sick bay, so we forgot to notify him.
Right. Yeah, it sounds, let's hope it's a classic case of British incompetence.
Well, I'm told that often that is done with a well-known prisoner to assert authority over him and over his visitors.
Yeah, like being in prison, in a prison built for terrorists is not asserting enough authority, as it were. It could be argued that the whole time he was in the Ecuadorian embassy he was also in prison, and was the British government exerting authority, because if he took a step outside, of course, they would have arrested him.
I agree with it very much. It's the cruelest thing. I mean, Nils Melzer, who's the UN rapporteur for torture, released the report and couldn't get an interview in Australia with mass media, offered an interview to the ABC, which wasn't taken up. A recent Four Corners program, scandalous, a disgrace in my view, didn't interview Nils Melzer, and his report had only been out a few days before that.
Yeah, and that was that. What would you call it? That shit piece, I think, hero or villain.
Yes, it's utterly scandalous. ABC smearing of Julian.
Now, why would they do that? Because if I remember correctly, the ABC, and in particular Four Corners, when the Swedish allegations were first came to light, Four Corners actually did quite a reasonable piece.
Yeah, that was a good piece, actually. It was very even-handed and fair to Julian. But I don't know why. I can't answer. We're going to make a formal complaint. Well, several of us will make formal complaints to the ABC on the qualities of that program, based simply upon their own regulations.
Right. Okay, we'll just cut to a station promo for a moment.
3CR programs provide information and analysis you won't hear in the mainstream.
Today we'll be looking at the legacy of the US war on Vietnam, on Laos.
And as far as corporate capitalism is concerned, it is the worst political and economic system that you can have.
Our laws about jailing refugees and asylum seekers are so well crafted.
Sex is not irrelevant, and we like who we are, but we don't have to be imprisoned by our gender.
Become a subscriber today. Call us on 9419 8377 or visit 3cr.org.au. 3CR, the voice of dissent.
Okay, you're with a Friday Rave, a community radio 3CR, broadcasting on 855 on your AM dial, through the digitals on 3CR Digital, and all the W's at 3cr.org.au, where I'm joined in the studio by Julian Assange's father, John Shipton, and a few other people from the Melbourne for WikiLeaks support group. But John, as I've said in the past, and we spoke earlier about when we were about coming into the radio here, can you tell us a bit about, just trying to work out how to frame this. We often talk about Julian and the injustices that's been done towards him, and how useful to anti-war and peace and transparency activists the work of WikiLeaks has been, but all too often in the discourse, I guess you'd say, we leave out why the actual leaks happened. I mean, even the most supportive of discussions about Julian sometimes steers eerily close to painting him as a bit of a troublemaker, like some sort of ratbag who just wanted to release state secrets. What can you tell us? What's your understanding of the reasons behind his work with WikiLeaks?
Well, I can, from my point of view, I can say that what I've read of his statements and speaking to Julian, that primarily to make decisions in life which are good, you need information, and particularly as regards government actions and institutions. And the quality of that information has to be sound. So if leaks will inform you as to what your government is doing, and you can make appropriate decisions as to how to respond in personally or socially or politically.
Right, so WikiLeaks was formed, what, 13 years ago?
Yes.
Now? And since then, of course, we know about the major leaks, the collateral murder video, of course, and the cable gates, and the Podesta emails, and the leaks still keep coming. How do you think Julian feels about the impact he's made on society? Because, like him or not, and I'm one of the people who does like him, nobody can argue that he hasn't had a profound effect that changes the way journalism is undertaken around the world.
Well, yes, I couldn't speculate as to how Julian feels. You know, his feelings are his own. But I could describe that Julian and WikiLeaks have given us insight into all of the heinous crimes that are unfolded before us in the last 20 years, of country after country destroyed, assassinations, implantation of spies, second-rate politicians who have their affiliation to the local ambassador of the United States, and so on. They're all exposed. In our own case in Australia, a few of them exposed by WikiLeaks have had to resign. Equally, Trafigura dumping toxic waste off the coast of East Africa and destroying the lives of the coastal villages. Or you can take Diego Garcia, the islands. They were able to mount a case to the ICJ against the United Kingdom and win, based upon the work of WikiLeaks. There are many, if I could describe it like this, that WikiLeaks has enabled us to see how the geopolitical world is composed and disposed, and the disposition of individuals within that.
Yeah.
John, can I jump in?
Go for it, Mills.
I'd like to ask a question. Your question, Jacob, was sort of phrased whether you like him or not, and you happen to like him. We hear that a lot, but I want to know, because from what I've seen of Julian, how he presents and how he comes across, he seems very likeable, and no one's ever told us what he's like. What is Julian like? Is he narcissistic? Is he mad? Is he a great guy? I think people need to know who Julian is, because they've been denied that by the smear campaign.
Well, there's many people elevate themselves to a high position by commenting on the psychological nature of somebody who they want to climb over the top of. I think it's nauseating. But with Julian, he's actually sweet and funny. And if you watch those early videos of Julian in the release of the Iraq War and Afghan War and cables, you'll see that he's sweet and funny and light-hearted, intellectually powerful, and carries himself as an attractive young Australian or Melbourne-style man, which I would think that we'd all be very, very proud of and delighted.
Bit of a bloody hipster, it's my memory.
Yes.
We won't hold that against him, though. Old curmudgeon like myself.
He wears checked shirts and,
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, that's his nature. And he's also interesting in as much as that if you speak to him, he doesn't elevate, and he holds knowledge of what you're speaking. He doesn't elevate himself to the point of being your lecturer. It always has the generous and gentle feeling of an equal exchange of ideas and insights.
Yeah.